Hello everybody, Jack here, welcome back to another video. In today's video I thought I'd bring you a bit of a finance type video on the money I've spent on the Mini since I've owned it. So I'm going to go through and include things as small as bleed screws to things as expensive as a clutch change, and I'm going to be really transparent and just let you know exactly how much I've paid for everything. So when I bought the Mini, it was cheap. It had 11 months MOT, had full service history, it'd been really well looked after, but it was just cheap for the spec that it was. So I'll go through the price I paid in a minute, but first I just want to say thank you to everybody that's subscribed so far to the channel. We hit 200 subscribers today, so I really appreciate it. But yeah, if you haven't subscribed already, make sure you do, please subscribe, and yeah, it helps out a lot more than you think it does. Okay, so let's get on with the finance side of the video. So first up, 8th of August 2019, the day I made a big mistake. I'm joking. I bought the car. £1,350 I paid for the car for a very high spec model Mini R53. Now the car was completely stock, it had no issues that I was aware of, it seemed fine. I broke all the rules of buying a car. I bought it in the dark, it was about 11 o'clock at night by the time I got there, it was raining, so you know, broke all the rules to buying a car, but yeah, it was great and I was happy with it, so we purchased it. It was in Bristol, so drove it back from Bristol to Shrewsbury, but yeah, that was the 8th of August, paid £1,350 for it. So a bit of backstory, my car before this car was also a Mini. I had a Mini R50, a Mini 1. It was great. I ended up crashing it in Cornwall on holiday, paid £600 to have it repaired so I could drive it home, and then scrapped it 2 weeks later, which was a bit of a shame, but I bought this to replace it. So before I sort of eventually scrapped it off, I did remove a few parts that I found out that my Mini needed. So I took the power steering pump, the boot struts, the aftermarket wheels and tyres, and the rear window wiper motor. So I had to replace all of them. Obviously that was free because I just pulled them off my car anyway. Now if you was to pay for that, obviously as I said I got mine free, but if you were to pay for it, probably set you back about £200, not including labour. None of these prices, unless I'll specifically state it, will include labour. As you know, run a YouTube channel, do everything myself. So yeah, so October 2019, September was nice and quiet, thank God. October, the spark plugs decided to leave my engine. So cylinder 1 ejected its spark plug whilst I was on the way back from work. So I managed to limp it home on 3 cylinders. Had a look, the spark plug hadn't taken any of the threads with it. The threads still looked good, I could still see them all. And I went and replaced the spark plugs, which cost £13. Replaced all 4 while I was there, and touch wood, since then those spark plugs have not re-ejected, so I'm happy that the cylinder is okay. If it ever came to it, I'd probably replace the cylinder head rather than getting it Healy coiled, because I know it's a little bit hit and miss, and you know, replacing the cylinder head is not a massive job, costs about 300 quid. Which would definitely be annoying, but there we go. So it's November now, 20th of November to be precise, and the ballast igniter pack on the passenger side of the Mini decided it didn't want to work anymore, and I had a headlight out, so I had to replace that, which was £55, and I had to replace one of the headlights as well because that had gone too, and while I bought one I just bought both, so together that was £77, the bulbs was £22. Now December, a couple of days before Christmas, driving home from work, and I hear the most horrendous noise going. There was a Fiesta driving past, I'm joking. So I got it home and I saw this.
The exhaust.
Hello! So to rectify this, I had to replace the manifold back past the cat to where sort of the cat and the rest of the exhaust meet. And that was fine. That cost about £126.50 I think. And as I got around to doing the job in the new year, the section that joins the manifold and the cat to the catback part of the exhaust was completely rusted. I could not get it apart at all, so I just bought a Toyo Sports catback exhaust, and altogether that's £336.50. Yeah, and that was one of my favourite mods so far. Now I should say this list is repairs only and not mods, although some of them might seem like mods, i.e. I put a sports cat and a catback exhaust on it. That is a mod, but it needed doing, so I'll include it in both videos because I do plan to do a mod video too. Now you might think that replacing the entire catback section was a little bit too heavy-handed, but when I actually took the exhaust off, the hole in the back box was actually big enough to put my foot into. Now I have size 11 feet and I could comfortably fit it in with room to spare, so that needed replacing anyway. So January 2020 rolls around. Little did we know what a year we'd be in for. I had to replace the gasket between the manifold and the catback exhaust. I'm guessing the gaskets that come with the catback exhaust are just the cheapest ones they can find. So it you know, just disintegrated pretty much. So I put a proper gasket on there, and I paid £3 for it off eBay. So at the end of January I went to Mini Fair 2020, which I did a video on, which you can check out in the iCard, wherever it is. And when I was there I met someone I'm actually really close friends with now, Connor. If you're watching this, shout out to you. But he pointed out that the top mounts had actually sort of disintegrated on my Mini. So on the 1st of February I bought a new one for the front left side, and a new strut bolt. So for £43.85 I replaced the top mount and the strut bolt. The reason I replaced the strut bolt was when I took it out it was just completely rounded off, and I actually had to use sort of grippy sockets to get them off. But anyway, replaced that, all's well. Then on the 12th of February I bought and replaced the front bleed screw on the Mini. It just basically, the centre of it disintegrated and I had a small coolant leak. So I replaced that. That was £2.50. And then 29th of February I did an oil, filter and sump plug change, which you can look at the video wherever it is. So in total that cost me £32.70, which in my opinion is quite reasonable. If you took it to a garage you'd be looking to pay a lot more than that. So then March and April 2020 we were in lockdown, so the car wasn't driven at all. I was furloughed, so I wasn't even driving to work. So it was just sitting on the drive and I was just taking it out for a drive to the shops whenever we needed to. But then May rolled round and that was the most expensive month I've ever had on a car. So 6th of May my car comes out of the garage, so straight away when you hear it's come out of a garage you know it's going to be an expensive job. You know I like to make videos about my cars, so if it's in a garage it's a big job that was above me. If I would have known I was going to get furloughed for 4 or 5 months, probably would have undertook this myself, but we move. So I had the clutch, the dual mass flywheel and the clutch slave cylinder replaced in a garage for £1,022.30. That was a bit heartbreaking to see that bill, and it was even more heartbreaking to see I was furloughed not long after the car came out of the garage, so I could have done it myself. Anyway, 12th of May I replaced the ignition leads for £35. Again, bit of a mod, but also the ignition lead in cylinder 1 was causing a slight misfire issue from when the spark plugs ejected themselves from the cylinder head. The actual rubber ignition lead had got all messed up on the end from when it had been ejected, so they needed replacing. As I said, bit of a mod, but also they needed doing. On the 13th of May I replaced the reg plate lamps, which was £7, and on the 23rd I replaced the inner and outer tie rod ends, which was £57. So that was an expensive month. June, that was when my MOT was, so I replaced my brake pad wear sensors because I had a light on the dash. There's a video for that if you want to check it out. That cost £10. So the 17th of June, again another expensive month. I decided to put coilovers in the car. You can check out the playlist here to watch me do it. But I had a lot of trouble with the back. It was completely rusted. So I had to get 2 new rear trailing arms. They were £40 each delivered, which was quite reasonable. I was going to get the bolts drilled out of them because essentially the bolts snapped inside of the rear trailing arms. But to get them out, I was looking at paying about 120 quid. So I thought I'd just get new ones, and it was going to be quicker to buy new ones anyway. Then I had to get the 2 new rear strut bolts. That was £25.70 for the 2. Bolts for this, to find the actual right ones, the legit OEM ones, are really dear. I don't know why. When I sourced my front strut bolt, that was quite dear too. But anyway, I had to put 2 new rear drop links on because they both snapped. They were 17 quid. And 2 rear ABS sensors, which were £21 for the 2. July, I put a driver side drive shaft on it. It was starting to get a weird clunking noise, and the driver side drive shaft was an advisory on the last MOT saying that the boot was split, but it wasn't split enough to cause the MOT to fail. So I thought, yeah, it's making a bit of a weird noise. Spoke to one of my mates, Owen, who's a mechanic, and he said it sounds a little bit like a drive shaft. So replaced the entire thing, which fixed the MOT issue and indeed fixed the weird sort of whirry clunking noise I was getting. And then on the 19th of July I did the timing chain tensioner because I started it up and it started making a horrible rattling noise. I panicked because I thought the timing chain needed doing, but my good friend Connor said, try changing the tensioner, it's only cost you a tenner. And yeah, that fixed the issue and it's still been fine to this day. So yeah, the drive side drive shaft, £45, and the timing chain tensioner, £10. If you want to watch me change the drive side drive shaft, I'll link the video here. Now August, that was a pretty good month. Not too much going on. The 20th of August, I replaced the bonnet scoop on the car. I was driving down the A5, horrendous wind, horrendous rain, and I watched it fly off over the bonnet. That was 30 quid off eBay, not too bad. It came in primer, so I just had to spray that. But I had some black spray paint sitting in the shed, so that's all good. And then I did another oil change. I wanted to put a thicker oil, so I put 5W40 in it, and it's been fine ever since. I was getting a little bit of a ticking noise again, hence why I went up to the thicker oil. But yeah, I did that oil change. Again, cost me £32.70. So it's all good. So September rolled round and my alternator decided to die halfway through the month, which was useful. That cost me £116. And while I was there, I took the radiator off to give myself some more access. So I had to drop some more coolant into it, which cost me 20 quid. Then in October, I went out with all the boys, went out for some lunch. And on the way home from some lunch, we took this photo. Because I was on the side of the road with a shredded alternator belt. So I had to replace that, that cost me £17. And my other half's uncle had to give me a tow home, so thanks for that if you're watching. And then on the 24th of October, I replaced the discs and pads front and back. November and December 2020 were pretty quiet. Again, we weren't really driving the cars that much because we were back in lockdown, but I also bought the Subaru Legacy, which, you know, I've been driving quite a bit recently and I'm really enjoying it. I'm obviously still enjoying the Mini, but I enjoy driving the Legacy too. So January 2021, it's currently the 31st of January, so this is pretty much the full month. The horns needed replacing because they just stopped working. I managed to get them for free off my friend Tyler because he was getting rid of the ones off his Lexus, so I put them in, had to rewire them and put them in, that's all good. Then I replaced my xenon headlights because my old ones were all clouded, and I managed to get a quote to get them sort of restored, and it was going to cost me the best part of like 250 quid to buy new ones for 200 quid, so I replaced them and they look a lot better. So the last thing I've had to do this month was the smash panel and the radiator and the coolant and the bleed screw. All in that cost me about £64. The smash panel and the radiator was 40, the bleed screw was 4, and the coolant was about £20. So yeah, that wasn't too bad. If you want to watch if you do want to watch that video, you can click up here and watch me do that. So altogether, I spent a grand total repairing this car of £2,295, which is a lot more than I would have anticipated when I first bought it. And that price, if you're curious, is £3,645, including the original purchase of the car. So another thing that I thought I'd include, but not as part of the total, because obviously it differs for everybody, is tax, insurance and petrol. So the tax on the Mini is about £28 a month, that's how I pay it. So in a year that's equivalent to about £330-ish. Quite dear really. Now insurance, so I'm currently 20. When I reinsured myself on the Mini last year, I'd literally just turned 20. And my insurance is £126 a month, so that's about £1,500 a year. Yeah, that's quite dear. I've got 2 years no claims, no restrictions or anything on my policy. That's with one of my parents on there, so yeah, it's quite expensive. So my first year on the car was £3,000, just over £3,000 actually, for third-party fire and theft. Wasn't insured to commute to work, which wasn't a problem at the time because I wasn't commuting in the car, I was on the train, and yeah, that was quite expensive. Luckily it went down a lot for this year, and I'm hoping in August this year, fingers crossed, it'll go down even more. And finally, fuel wise, the car does about 30 to 32 miles per gallon. I do a bit of motorway miles to work, so that probably does help. When I sort of kick it around town, it can do about 16 miles per gallon, so it's not the best for fuel, although it's not too bad really. But yeah, as I said, thought I'd include that just so you can get a reasonable expectation of what it's like, insurance, tax and petrol wise. Obviously it differs for everybody, so I didn't include that in the overall total. Now the Mini is in its current state not in the best condition, so it does need new brake pad wear sensors and it needs a new front left ABS sensor. I need to buy both of them, I just haven't got around to repairing it really. I think I actually have the ABS sensor in the shed, I've just not got around to putting it in. But yeah, that's the only thing that needs doing on it really. So yeah, that's how much you can expect a cheap Mini to cost you. Just over 3.6k in just over a year and a half. So yeah, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you leave it a thumbs up. Make sure you hit subscribe. As I said, really grateful for 200 subscribers. Go and make sure you follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be doing a giveaway over there, so yeah, make sure you go and follow me on Instagram to keep up to date with that. But for now, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, share it with your mates, and I'll see you in the next one.